As an eBay reseller, you should be constantly on the lookout for ways to sell more items and save money. And this little guy can do that. It's an eBay standard envelope. What makes it an eBay standard envelope? We say it is. Actually, there's a whole bunch of rules that you have to follow. 3 primary rules and a whole bunch of secondary rules. I'm going to tell you how to save a little money if you sell in certain categories. And we're going to do it using this eBay branded envelope. Now, I just had a situation this week where I sold 8 small items. They were all listed for eBay standard envelope. So it caused me to go back and check the rules in a little more detail, because normally I just sell singles or maybe a pair of items. The item was a small metal Boeing tag. I sell these in pairs. Guy bought 8 tags. So even though they were listed for eBay standard envelope, I had to check the finer print to see if I could do it. Well, what do you got there, monkey? Is that an eBay standard envelope? What are you going to do with that today? Well, good morning. This is Brian, back from Key West. In fact, it's the first nice sunny day since we returned. And I have a few more videos from our Key West vacation to edit and get up and add to that playlist. But had a couple things going on this week, and I wanted to jump ahead and go ahead and talk about them. A lot of people are unaware of this particular item. It's an eBay standard envelope. What makes it an eBay standard envelope? Because you use it with the program. And it's a way to save some money and to sell more items. eBay introduced the idea of an eBay standard envelope back in January of 2021. And like other programs that come online, it had a particular idea. Initially, it was introduced for sports cards. The idea was, why should you be paying first-class rates or later ground advantage rates for something that might only sell for $10? The regular postage to get tracking was pricing those small, low-value items out of the market. Often, buyers were being asked to pay more for shipping than they were for the item. So eBay came up with the idea of the eBay standard envelope. They introduced it, they announced it at the end of 2020, got it into operation in 2021 in January, and they did it with the concurrence, if you will, of the post office. Think of the eBay standard envelope as a first-class envelope with tracking. If you keep that in mind, you've basically grasped the concept. It's like mailing a birthday card to your grandchild or sending something small out in an envelope to a friend. And it doesn't require all of the expense of ground advantage. When it was introduced, it was like, I don't sell trading cards. So I noted it, but I didn't really think much about it. Eventually, the program expanded, and it has some comparisons, if you will, to when the post office introduced flat rate envelopes like this one. And back before ground advantage, I used this almost daily. I still use it occasionally, but not nearly as often. But it had some problems, and it had some limitations, and that's why I'm comparing it to the envelope, the standard envelope. The padded flat rate envelopes and all the other flat rate envelopes were not available in the lobby of your local post office. So even though they introduced it and they ran some ads, it didn't really catch on quickly. People had to learn about it. Word of mouth had to spread. And even though it's coming up on the 5-year anniversary of the eBay standard envelope, most resellers I meet don't understand it or don't even know about it. But when it can be used, and I say when because there are stipulations, it can really significantly save money and make the items you're offering a lot more appealing to buyers. The big difference between this envelope and first-class mail is that it has tracking. Now, tracking's key. It stops those complaints where the buyer says, my item never arrived. Because a lot of sellers of sports cards, they just used to use regular paper envelopes. They put a stamp on it. They'd send it out. It would cut their costs. They could sell those quantity of low value items, and quantity was the key. If you're going to sell items, $3, $4, $5, $6, $7, you better be moving some quantity. But often they would simply get complaints that the item never arrived. It would hurt their staffs. They would take up their time trying to defend it, and they couldn't prove it because there was no tracking. So eBay said, well, if we can find a cheaper way to send envelopes and low value cards, and we can provide tracking through the post office, we got a winner. And it is a winner when you can use it. The item I was shipping this week that brought this all up again were these little Boeing name tags. They're metal tags, and they themselves are not very thick. They're probably about the same thickness as a sports card. So I had a sale for 2 different types, pairs, multiple quantities. Let me say that again. A guy bought pairs of 2 different styles, and he bought 2 pair of each style. So I had to ship 8 of these little tags. And these are one of my eBay standard envelope listings. Been doing them for years because I have hundreds of them. Got them off a pallet at an auction. They were just one item on a pallet. And I'm like, well, these are interesting. But to make them effective to sell, I doubled up the quantity. So every order was for 2. And I had 2 slightly different styles. So that meant 2 listings. It was a quick lister, though, because I listed the first one, and then I only had to say what was different. And what was different was a 3M branded self-adhesive peel and stick backer. So some were metal with a backer. Okay, that's the product that brought this all up. Because for the first time ever, I sold more than just a multi-quantity. I sold multi-quantities of multiple items. And that brought me against some of the rules. And there are 3 primary rules. The first is that a single item cannot exceed $20 in value. 4 orders, pairs, 8 total. So I thought to myself, well, a single one only sells in the $7 range, plus shipping. But I would exceed the $20, and that's why I went back and took a little deeper look at the rules. I looked, and it actually says in the rules, $20 for single items, $50 for combined items, because I thought I was going to run afoul of that rule initially. Second problem, can only be 1/4 inch thick or less. And I said, well, I'd have to find a way to spread 8 of these out along the envelope so that they didn't bunch up and thicken it beyond 1/4 inch, because that's the second primary rule. So you're already starting with a double-sided cardboard envelope, and whatever you put inside and then the label on top and any tape can exceed 1/4 inch thick. The third primary rule is weight. The eBay standard envelope has 3 steps, 3 levels: 1 ounce, 2 ounce, 3 ounce. So I wondered if 8 of them, plus the envelope, plus the Ziplocs I put them in, plus the tape and the label, would exceed 3 ounces. Well, they didn't. They came in under 3. So I could have done it. And of course, I overruled myself and shipped them out in a box anyway, because they were going international. And I didn't want to worry about how to figure out how to spread 8 of them out and keep them thin. I didn't want to worry, because I hadn't checked the rule yet, about $50 for combined items. So I thought I was going to have a problem with some of those primary rules. But as I looked, I was reminded that there are a whole bunch of secondary rules, little rules that people forget. And that's what put me in mind of this padded envelope. The way the post office introduced these, it was, if it fits, it ships. Now that made it sound initially like there was no weight limit. But in reality, all of the flat rates have a weight limit. It happens to be 70 pounds, and I've never come close to that. So in day-to-day use, you just think, if I can get it in here, it'll ship. But every once in a while, if you're using, say, a large flat rate box, you could come close to that. And as with many things, right on the packaging, there are additional rules, fine print, if you will. $100 of insurance, it has tracking, it has limited international use, it has a customs declaration form if you go international. And then in even smaller print, it talks about the insurance. But you'll see right on it, it says, one rate, any weight. But that isn't really true. That's an advertisement. It's really a 70-pound weight. So you've got to look past the initial rules that everybody knows or everybody learns and keeps in the frontal cortex of their brain. And you sometimes have to look at the deeper rules. And I'll flash a few of those up on the screen from the eBay help page and from Google AI. So let's take a look about when this can be used, because as I said, the initial restriction and the reason I didn't pay much attention, it was for sports cards, right? And I just don't sell many, one a year maybe. So it wasn't worth keeping envelopes around and buying them and learning the rules until the program expanded. And this is what I'm talking about. Now, you might be surprised by what you can ship in an eBay standard envelope. Trading cards, obviously, coins and currency, paper and metal money, stamps, postcards, patches. I sell a lot of patches. Stickers and decals. Again, another category I do. Greeting cards. That's one that never occurred to me. And here's one that must have been added fairly recently because I'd never conceived that you could ship garden seeds in an eBay standard envelope. I guess if you had one pack of garden seeds, that would be the way to do it. Because remember, prior to the eBay standard envelope, your choice was ground advantage. Before that, it was first class, but ground advantage is what we're dealing with these days. And the smallest package you can pay for with ground advantage is 4 ounces. Well, the upper limit of the eBay standard envelope is 3 ounces. And I happen to stock this size and this size only. This is the 6x8. It's a double-sided cardboard, has a peel and stick fold over. But this empty weighs 1.2 ounces. So you can see that even though they'll let you pay for 1 ounce, 2 ounce, or 3 ounce, chances are you're not shipping any 1 ounce packages. But if you could, the post office, the current label on eBay would be 74 cents for 1 ounce. 2 ounces would be $1.03. 3 ounces would be $1.32. Now that's for the label. And the label prints a little bit differently than your regular eBay label. It goes on this way. And that's one of the rules. You've got to be able to put the addressing label on in the direction the post office wants it. And these have to be machinable. So they have to have some flexibility to them. So if you make an envelope or you pick an envelope that's too rigid, they'll reject it. And I heard that early in the program, a lot of these were rejected because the employees didn't understand the program. Because as with many things, the management will agree to something with a company like eBay. It takes a long time for that information to trickle down to the counter people and to the carriers. That's just the nature of big organizations. So let's take a look at some of this. Where do you get the envelopes? Well, when I finally decided to do it, because they had added things like patches, I went onto the eBay branded shipping supply store, and I just ordered my first 100. And they had a few different sizes, which is a bit odd here, and we'll get into that. But I just ordered my first 100 of this size because I figured 6x8 would be convenient. One of the challenges with this is if you reach for the limit of the size that's allowed, the envelope itself begins to weigh much of the limit. So the envelopes can be 3.5 inches by 5 inches, up to 6.25 inches by 11.5. Now 6.25 by 11.5 is a bit odd, but perhaps some decals would work. But if you look at the eBay branded shipping supply store, there are 3 that look like this, and there are different sizes. First is a 5x7. You're going to pay about 34 cents under the current prices. The next one, which is this one, is a 6x8. You're paying $35.79, 35, almost 36 cents. You buy these in quantities of like 100. So you're paying, what is that, $35.79 for 100 of these. And the last one that looks like this is actually a 9x11. But if you refer back to those sizes I mentioned, it doesn't qualify under the basic rules. It's too big. It would probably also weigh over 2 ounces if you could use it. But just because it's there and it looks like an eBay branded envelope, for standard envelope programs doesn't mean it qualifies. There's another whole group of rules because you don't have to use the eBay provided envelopes. You can use anything that meets and qualifies for the criteria. So if you go on to eBay or other platforms and you search eBay standard envelope, these will come up. But also unbranded envelopes will come up, and they're cheaper. You can buy them in different quantities. You can buy 10, you can buy 250, and of course there's some savings in buying in bigger bulk. And if these are going to be part of your inventory for things like sports cards or non-sports cards or patches, you'll want to figure out how many you're going to use in a reasonable time and order the sizes accordingly. Or order some initially, see how the program works for you, and then save some additional money by ordering them in larger quantities. They come in white, they come in brown, they look just like this, but aren't marked eBay. But again, you have to refer back to the rules, the minimum size, the maximum size, the weight, whether you can get the label on them in the right direction. And they can't have things like metal fasteners. And I'll flash those rules up. You buy your envelope, 35 to 40 cents per envelope. It meets the requirements. You turn to the software, and depending on whether you let business policies, the shipping policy portion of business policies, create your fees for shipping, or whether you use the drop-down menu and you put in size and weight calculated and say eBay standard envelope. That's one of the first things you'll have to find out as you think about a new category. For instance, these are not on the general list that says postcards, coins, trading cards, etc. But I think they're an excellent candidate. So whenever I have an item, a multi-quantity item that I think is an excellent candidate, I have to first find out whether eBay standard shipping exists in the shipping portion of that eBay category. Sounds a little confusing, but it won't do you any good to think you can put it in an eBay standard envelope and then find out at either the listing time or the label printing time that that whole category doesn't qualify for eBay standard envelope. Because then you'll have to step up and you'll have to pay for ground advantage even though you only charge for standard envelope. I typically charge currently $1.79 for an eBay standard envelope delivery. And I do that because I know that envelope is costing me about 35 to 40 cents. So that has to go up on top of the shipping. And the 3-ounce shipping label is going to be $1.32. So we're up to about $1.77. So I make mine $1.79. When eBay raises, or the post office raises the cost of that label, I will have to raise what I charge to ship an eBay standard envelope. Before I went with business policies and business policies for shipping, I simply would go down to the drop down as I was creating the item, and I would look and see if eBay standard was a choice. Priority overnight, FedEx, they'd all appear. And if eBay standard envelope appeared, I would go, I'll use that because I know I can make it work. And I'd put in a price of $1.39 and 3 ounces because I figured I might as well use the ceiling weight. If once I packed it, I got it in under 2 ounces, then I'd make a few extra cents, which would help cover some cost of the envelopes and the shipping. Now that I use business policies, business shipping policies specifically, I have to go in and you have to actually set up a business policy for eBay standard envelope. But the information is very similar. How long you'll take to package and ship it, what you're going to charge to do it, your handling time, all those things. And I'll show you on the screen. But you just set up a shipping policy in your store for eBay standard envelope. And then you attach it to your listing, just like you used to make the selection from the drop-down. Quick recap, 3 primary rules. A single item, $20. Multiple quantity, multiple sale, $50. Can't be more than 1/4 of an inch thick. Has to be within the size parameters. And has to weigh under 3 ounces. And if you've got items, especially multi-quantity items, that fit that criteria, look over the rules. Make a decision. Get yourself a few envelopes, give it a try. Tracking makes this really no different than shipping a ground advantage item. If it gets lost, eBay says they'll stand behind it. I've never had one lost. I've never had one damaged, so I really don't know. But if you look in the eBay standard rules on eBay, there's actually a place to click to take you to how to process a claim. So it exists there in the system. I've simply never had to do it because these are pretty good envelopes, so the post office processes them pretty consistently. I don't use a lot of them, a few a month, but as I've moved into some new areas like non-sports cards, like RPG cards, I've moved into foreign coins occasionally. I sell a lot of patches, military patches. I sell postcards. So all those things are in my wheelhouse. So I might as well be shipping them this way when I can, saving some money and making the price look more attractive to buyers. Because if you're competing to sell, say, a military patch, and every other patch like it has a $5 ground advantage price tag, that makes your eBay standard envelope item much more appealing. As the price of shipping goes up each year, twice a year, holiday season, we're currently in the holiday bump for the post office shipping. Shipping goes up. So watch what you charge, adjust your business price or adjust your minimum price as shipping changes. But this can really be a way to sell more items because yours are more competitive. Now, in the end, because they were going international, it was easier to use the accumulated collection of shipping for selling 4 lots of 2 and put them in a cut down box and send them out than it was to struggle with an eBay standard envelope. But it caused me to check the rules. Selling items is what this is all about. I'm Brian. It's a beautiful day at the lake. Cabin Fever. Pouring down rain today. It's Thursday, Thanksgiving 2025, and I'm on my way out to do some packing at the packing bench. Specifically, a small lot of realtor-related pins, lapel pins, and a group of Boeing industrial labels, machinery labels. And that's especially interesting because it's a multi-quantity, multi-item order. And I love those little things. They just keep selling. They keep ticking over. They came as part of a pallet purchase, and they just make me money every time they sell. Here are the Boeing tags. Each order is for 2. He ordered 2 sets of 2 that do not have a backer, no adhesive back, and he ordered 2 sets of 2 that do have a peel-off 3M adhesive backer. Now, originally these listings were set up to go in an eBay standard envelope, which is underneath them. Let's check the weight. We would probably manage to pull that off if we didn't put in too much in the way of a Ziploc or the label didn't weigh too much. But we would be coming up close to the 3-ounce limit of eBay standard envelope. What I normally do with these, because first thing I do is I look them over to make sure none of them have scratches. And then I put them in pairs, good face to good face, like this. If I do have a scratched one, I set it aside, and in the end I'll just take all the scratched ones, however many there are, and I'll put them up as one clearance lot. So if we were to take 8 of these and stack them up, we would exceed the thickness. So the only way you could put multiple orders in an eBay standard envelope is if you found some way to space them out so that they couldn't bunch up like this. 1 layer deep, you'd make it. You'd have the room to do the 8. Last problem, 4 pair exceed the $20 value limit. So what we're going to do instead of an eBay standard envelope is we will either wrap them up and send them in an eBay bubble mailer, or because they're going international, we may just cut down one of these boxes, pack it in a box. That way we know it'll make it to its destination. We don't know yet what its destination is. The kanji type characters make me think Japan, but yeah, and collectively 4 sets of eBay standard envelope shipping label collections will exceed what it cost me to send that single small box to Illinois. So what do you think, Monkey? Aren't shipping out these small items fantastic? Let's take a look at what this overall price was. And remember, I have hundreds and hundreds of these because they came on an auction pallet from a Boeing surplus lot. And the little red dots tell us that he ordered 2 of each, so that's 8 total. There's the shipping address going to 110 International Boulevard, and collectively this order is worth $37.06. And like I said, we've got hundreds and hundreds of these tags. Normally we sell them a pair at a time, sometimes 2 pair, but this I think is the largest order we've done, and certainly the first international one. All right, 8 Boeing tags shipping international. So what I did is I took and I put each 4, those with adhesive, those without, and I rolled them inside a small Ziploc, and I'll do that to this one. Put a piece of tape on it, and I'm going to take a look at weight. Take a look at the general weight. If we throw those in the box and we cut this small box down in half, because we're going to try to do this under 4 ounces, you can see it's 3.7. But by the time I add some packing, by the time I put on a label, I would probably be over 4. So as I do this, what I'll do is I'll remove some of the flaps, probably 3 half flaps, and that'll bring my weight down. I can put in some brown crumple paper or some bubble, get the label on it, and it should ship under 4 ounces. If we put this in at 6 by 5 by 4 at 4 ounces, ground advantage, we hit return, that's going to cost me $4.95 for a label. We collected $5.88. So this way they can be padded more, the shipping will hold up better than an eBay standard envelope. It's going international, which means it's got to be handled twice, once to the shipping center, once out to its destination. This is the way to go. I don't have to worry about trying to keep the package thin. I can make it as thick and padded as I want to. Worst case scenario, if it were to slip over 4 ounces and become 8 ounces, that would jump my cost by about 30 cents. And even that would be less than what I collected. So look at that. We wrapped it in a little bubble. We wrapped it in some brown paper. We cut down the flaps on the... So what do you think? 3.8 ounces. I haven't put the label on it yet, but that should be fine. I cut down some of the box flaps. I put it in bubble. I put the bubble in brown paper. Yeah, I think we're going to be good to go. Well, what do you think, Monkey? We're down at the packing bench to make some money. Today we're shipping smalls. This is a group of lapel pins, the real estate industry. Yeah, they came in some jewelry boxes along with some military pins I was after. So I simply collected them all together, offered them as a lot. And what we'll do is we'll roll the envelope, we'll put it inside a little bit of bubble, fold that over, maybe wrap a piece of corrugated around it. Yeah, we'll slide it into this eBay branded bubble mailer. That's going all the way to Virginia. Let's take a look at what we end up paying for the shipping label and what we charge the buyer. All right, we made a little envelope for it out of the corrugated with some bubble. On the scale, yep, 1.5 ounces. Ground advantage, we put in the weight, put in the size, that's a 4-ounce pack. And it's going to run us $5.20. We charge $5.79, so that'll contribute some to the cost of the packing materials.